Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Liners, a series centered around key influencers and players in the performance marketing space. My name is Joey Liner of Liner Connections, and I am really excited to have my good friend Ethan Ewing on today. Ethan and I have been friends since I checked LinkedIn, and it's over 16 years. It's insane. Like when people in performance marketing say, I've known this guy forever, it's like they've talking about 5, 6 years or something. I've known Ethan since 2007. So it's pretty freaking cool. And we probably knew each other maybe even before that, kind of being from the same hometown, but didn't even know we were in the same hometown. So we'll talk about that too today. But Ethan, say hello, man. What's up, brother?
It's great to be here, Joey. Thank you. It's just a pleasure. It's that intro just reminds me, I was thinking about doing this and how excited I was to talk to you. And I will just say this right off the bat: you're one of the kindest people I know, and to have
Oh man.
your type of kindness in this industry just makes it just makes it fun. You know how as we've been doing this for a while, the things that you appreciate about the industry, the relationships are huge, and you epitomize that. And so yeah, I just want to thank you publicly. Thank you for
Oh
just being
man.
awesome and being just that big hearted person you are.
Thank you, brother. And I feel the same about you, man. We hit it off since day one, and we've always had that good connection. And it's good, you got such a great heart, and you've always put it out there for all the people around you, and that's kind of how we roll. And maybe it's that Baltimore blood. We'll
Maybe it's
find. We'll
Baltimore, baby.
um, but Ethan is the CEO of ProPair. He co-founded that business, but he's been in performance marketing for a long time. We're going to talk about that. But before we even get to any of that, I mean, we got to get right to the hot breaking news. Ethan won, actually you tied, but we'll talk about it in a second.
Oh,
He
I didn't
won,
know that there was
you
a
tied
tie.
with Margaret. Yeah, you tied with Margaret. Ethan,
Oh,
so
interesting.
right before LeadsCon, I put out there that, I'm a hugger. One of my good friends, Winley, came to me, a couple years ago and said, dude, you should count how many hugs you give at LeadsCon. And he sent me a video of the Guinness World Book of Records, and two dudes just basically standing there going like this the whole time, and they broke the hug count. Thought it was so funny, and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling good going to LeadsCon. I've got this good vibe, good energy. I'm gonna put out there in the universe. I'm gonna count how many hugs I'm gonna do, and I get some great responses on LinkedIn. And your response was actually funny because you actually broke down the math and you put how many hugs, which you guessed 180. So just so everybody knows, I did have a counter. Scott Payne put out here's 181 hugs.
Yeah, man.
And you guessed before the show, so no cheating or anything like that. But tell everybody how you got to because I thought I was going to hit 300 or something like that. But how did you get to 180? Like, what made
Yeah, I
you
mean, I,
go?
I love. I mean, it was such a good idea. It was such a cool thing, and I loved it. I had no idea. Like, if you just think about like, oh, wow, what's the number? I had no idea. I had kind of had no. I was thinking of thousands. So the easiest, I really enjoy these exercises because you can break down the units, right? So you start to like make it. It's a very hard number to guess at. But then the minute you're like, the thing I started with was okay. I see Joey at shows, and I see him give hugs and I'm thinking, like, what's his hourly rate? Like, how many hugs can he fit in? Right. So it's like, I think like 15 hugs, because 15 hugs, it's not just a hug, it's a hug and then a conversation. And so I'm thinking you got groups of 2 or 3. So you knock out 3 hugs and then you got like maybe 10 minutes of conversation. Then you move to the next one. So I came up with 15 per hour. And then I figured, okay, well, you're going to be at dinners, you're going to be sleeping, you're going to be,
Yes.
in your hotel room, you're going to be on stage, whatever it is. So you have 6 hours of like socializing. And then I thought 2 days. So it was just it became just a real simple math problem. And it's super fun. Like, but again, if you miss these assumptions, like if you blow up one assumption, if I was at 15 instead, I thought 30 hugs or 5 hugs, like then my guess is wildly off. So it was kind of interesting. Once I started seeing the other guesses come in, I was like, all right, I think I'm in the ballpark. So
Oh
it's
my
fun. I try to
goodness,
do it with
dude.
my kids too. It's like if you can guess, it's like how much money does, let's say you weren't looking at financials, how much money does Google make? Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay, well, let's just start. You just start with your very basic principles of like, well, how many searches are there? So on and on. But anyway, very
Dude.
enjoyable. So thank you for letting me do it.
And thanks for breaking that down because it's all pretty rational, like spot on. So your math was like pretty good there because you're right. Like if in our 20s, because we've been doing this a long time, or early 30s, we'd probably be out later at night, be able to have a lot more, interactions, But I'm in my bed by like 1 o'clock, and
That so
12,
that
1
I
o'clock.
was thinking that too, because I was thinking like I was if you were 15 years younger or 10 years younger, that number would have had to have doubled because your late night hugs would have been off the charts.
Great, dude. Spot on, man. Spot freaking on. And we're gonna really take this a step further because I thought about it after the show, and I appreciate everybody kind of joining in the guessing and creating a good LinkedIn post and content. And so I want to donate $181 to and you chose a great cause, which is it's the Sequoia High School Ravens Girls Lacrosse fundraiser. And tell us why that's important to you, man.
Well, so I coach the Sequoia High School girls lacrosse team. So they're it's a mile down the street. It's where both my daughters. I got a junior and a freshman there. And this is my second year doing it. We have our playoff game tomorrow. But it's
Wow.
a blast. I enjoy it so much. It's what I spend my evenings on.
Yeah.
It's 3 months of rigorous attention to the team, and we got 43 kids in the program, 42 kids in the program between a varsity and JV, and I run it all. And the cool thing, like what I like about it, I mean, well, I'll tell you. First, let me tell you a story. My daughter, she's a junior. She grew up playing club lacrosse. I coached her for years, and she's like a decent player. She can handle a stick, and but she never really like totally loved it. She did it because I liked it, and we just had fun together. And we've always had fun. So she played last year. She started for me, and then this year, the season starts at the end of January, early February, and the first week of practice, like she missed a couple practices, and then like Thursday night, the fourth day of practice, she just comes up to me at the house and it's like, "Hey, Dad, I'm not going to play," and I'm like, "Oh, oh man." And it's one of those things where I just hadn't imagined she wasn't going to play, and now she's not going to play. And she took it. She did it for the right reasons. She had to attend her academics. She was working on a theater production. She was doing a number of different. She does some volunteer work. She does some lacrosse coaching. She does a bunch of stuff. So it was a great decision for her, and it turned out to be a great decision. But it kind of made me realize, like, wow, there go my plans. And the reality is, yeah, you adjust a little bit, but then whatever it was, whatever, how it is in business or whatever it is, it just gets thrown at you. You just get a little adjustment. You just absorb it, you adjust, and go on. And hopefully I'll recruit her back for next year. But the thing I like most about this program, it's a great group of kids. It's our big local public high school. Our team, we're like a middle tier team, and their parent expectations are extremely low. It's lacrosse in Northern California, so it's not soccer. Girls soccer is big, and
Yeah.
so the parent expectations are low. They're very thankful for the work that we do. They're thankful that
Yeah.
their kids are engaged in it and developing, and the kids are great. So I've loved it because I can kind of I inherited the program. There's almost no precedence. I mean, there was very little structure, but I've got field space. I've got a league schedule. I've got support from the administration. I've got all those kids. I've got equipment. I've got budget. I've got pretty much whatever I need. I have to, raise a lot of it. But like my business, it's just one of those things where you can say, okay, great. I can make this whatever I want it to be. And for me, the primary objective was to craft an experience for these kids. The kids that are coming into the program, whether they're ninth graders all the way up through seniors, I want to create an experience for them that's part of their academic journey, obviously, but is like something that they will take with them forever. And you can do that. I mean, these kids are out there 15 hours a week. Like I'm in a position where it's like, if I can mail it in or whatever,
Yeah.
but I conversely can craft an environment and an experience for them that's like material that they will take the rest of their lives. And I love that. And I'm not, who knows, some kids will it doesn't stick all the time, but it's a really neat thing. I think coaches, you look across at our high school, it's a bunch of volunteer coaches. It's a bunch of, community members, parents, but they're committed coaches crafting a great experience. And so I love it. I love doing it. I love the game. I still play lacrosse quite a bit. So it's nice to have a stick in my hand, 7 days a week. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, we grew up in like one of the lacrosse meccas of, the country, right? Like the in Baltimore, with Hopkins and Towson, and you went to, you in high school, it was such a big competitive sport, and obviously Maryland, and University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I mean, it just there's always had great pedigree of lacrosse and professional lacrosse players.
Yeah.
And it's slowly becoming more and more popular every year, more popular out west.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But
It's like a
thanks.
trump. It is like a trump card. Like there's when
Yes.
people are they're you're out in the lacrosse community out here, and people say, "Where are you from?" You're like, Baltimore. It's like, yep. All right,
Yes. Here we
you're legit.
go.
Yeah, Baltimore. Yep. It's like,
Uh,
okay.
no, dude, that's awesome. And thanks for sharing your story about your daughter. I think, like I said, it's all about adjustments, and we live that world every day in performance
Yeah.
marketing, but in real life, I mean, it happens, right? Like you thought you go into probably had a vision going into the year saying this is going to be a great point, but you've done a good job pivoting, and now you're in the playoffs, so good luck, dude. And I'm sure
Playoffs.
hopefully she's coming out there to watch you guys and
I hope
support you.
so. I
So
hope so.
yes. All right, well, let's get on to some business stuff, because like I said, I've known you since 2007, and it's when I was a double positive and building out contact center work around the mortgage space, and you were running bills.com, which was one of the leading mortgage lead generators, through that period and beyond. So tell us about how'd you get there? Like, what made you get into performance marketing?
Yeah. Well, since we, in our preview, you said that we could talk. You said this can be up to an hour. I'm going to take my time on this one. I started. I bought my first lead in 1998 off a lending tree, and that was back in Baltimore. And I'll never forget. This was back like before any internet, and whenever I wanted to go buy leads, I'd have to unplug my phone, the little 28 bit thing, whatever, unplug my phone, crawl under my desk and plug it into a different, do exactly, off my fax machine and plug it in. And then I would log in to Lending Tree and I would buy leads, and then I would unplug it and I would plug it back in and I would start making calls.
Unbelievable.
So I got into it early. Now at that point I had a small broker shop. There's I had a couple other brokers and a processor, and it was a nice business, just a nice little originations business. I got into it a little bit more seriously in the next couple of years. I moved out here in 2000 and worked for a company, actually ran project management for a company that was buying a ton of Lending Tree leads, and a ton of leads from really from all over. And this was early days. The company was called Ion.com, big mortgage lender. Had some problems, didn't make it. Like many, that was the .com boom era in March of 2000 or so. And then I ended up picking up with an Experian company. And over the next 4 years, really like just spent I was doing business development work, creating a bunch of partnerships with, Yahoo, AOL, MSN, E-Trade, all the big names back then. And it was really fun. We were spending a lot of money doing a lot of CPA type deals. It was early days and it was heady, man. I mean, it was like this great, just never forget this memory of Yahoo. We had a partnership. It was $1 million-ish, multi-million-dollar type partnership. But this was when they were really struggling to sell inventory. This is late 2000, 2001. CPMs were super cheap, right? Like they were just giving it away. And so we would go down to the Yahoo campus, and Lee Brown was our rep. He was awesome. And we would sit with Lee, me and my boss, JB Arecki at the time, we would sit there and we would talk through it was a $15 CPA for a product that mad a bunch of money. It was a $15, that was what they were getting paid, as a $15 CPA. They were talking, where can we place you? How many like all Lee wanted to do was find more inventory. And then we invented that Yahoo Mail spot that went so big for so long, all of those little things. But it was this great deal with this huge portal with tons of traffic. And it was this beautiful CPA deal. And it was just amazing. And that really, those types of deals back then could be had just based on what the market was doing. Obviously, it's so much more competitive now. It's those deals are long gone. But you could build businesses back then. And, those opportunities still exist today. I mean, I think there's, those, it just changes what that opportunity looks like. But that's how I got into it. And I just stayed into it with Experian. I went up and ran sales for another business and moved me up here to Northern California. And then I met the guys from, which is now Achieve, but Freedom Debt Relief, and they had the bills.com domain. And it's a great group of guys, very, very good entrepreneurs. I learned a ton from them. Went up there, started that business in 2006. And we turned it into a lead generation business. Like you said, it was a very nice lead generation business, driving a lot of traffic. 80% of our volume was mortgage. And that's a cool business. I mean, I think anybody that would watch this podcast understands the dynamics of, where the real value is. I personally always felt that the hardest thing to do was driving traffic, driving quality traffic. That's always the hardest, most expensive. You have to be most in tune with your numbers. It's a really, really, really challenging thing to do. And then converting folks into leads and then selling leads. Not that it's easy, but selling leads is easier. There's usually a lot of demand out there. But the challenge when you're spending that much money, and we were spending tens of $millions a month on media, when you're spending that money and then you're selling leads and you're kind of looking into your lead buyers and looking into your shops, and they're giving you feedback sometimes, hey, leads are like amazing, so good. Other times, hey, your leads suck, and maybe it's the same lead or it's the same customer even in the same month or different week. So, it always, the challenge for me was always like, gosh, we're doing so much to generate this interest online, and we're spending so much and so much time to get these people through these forms and to generate these leads. Yet when I send them into lenders, it's just, there's no sense of control on their side for like what they're doing with those leads. And that was always a struggle for me. And then I met my partner back in, we've known each other for 13 years now. But I met him back in, I think it was 2012. And we just started talking about this idea of using a technology at the time, ML, to kind of make these decisions around, okay, if a lead buyer is spending, $100,000 a month, $1 million a month, $5 million a month on leads, they're kind of hamstrung, right? Like they have no control really over what they're doing with those leads. They can have some fixed rules in place. You have some pattern recognition around what works and what doesn't work. But you're really kind of stuck. You can't keep up with the changes and what's happening. So we back then said, hey, like, let's try ML as the technology that drives these applications to make those decisions. And we just never looked back. And that's what we're doing today. And we've got a tailwind with some of the technology for sure. So we, just try to help folks make sure that they, I do these podcasts. I want to make sure people know the technology, this like transformative technology is out there and available.
Yeah, no. And let's dig in a little bit further there. So about ProPair. So it was, what you're saying is you actually got to experience the tech stack first in a sense, and it's, using it, and then witnessed it and then said, hey, I'm ready to go down this path because it's so freaking awesome. Like, let's build this baby out. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I saw it through the proxy was through our buyers at the time, and just seeing how hard it is. Like those decisions, you to make lead assignment, lead management, lead prioritization decisions, like that's super tough. And honestly, all of my customers back then, you talk to them, they're like, they wouldn't say that directly, but it's like, I can't do it. I don't know it's too hard. There's too much data. There are too many variables to consider. So that was really the problem that we always said, hey, like we can solve that. It is really hard. There's just too many things to consider and things change. So those fixed rules and those other approaches, they just can't keep up. If you're trying to be effective with lead management, it couldn't keep up. And it's a perfect job for ML, or now AI. We typically refer to ML, but AI has got a little more brand recognition. So we talk about AI, but it can consume a lot of data, and From that, you keep everything that happens. You're keeping updated. You're able to automate all those lead prioritization, assignment decisions. It's like a necessary tool anymore if you want to be really effective in how you're optimizing the stuff that you're buying.
Yeah. So for folks that don't, if somebody's listening today who doesn't know ProPair, like what do people out there say? Explain this to me like I'm five.
Yeah.
You know, what's the it obviously working with direct to consumer, businesses, right? That are in different verticals that are trying to, they're buying online digital leads, right? And what do you guys do to help them be successful or smart with what they're doing with their lead
Yes.
acquisition?
Yeah. So if you're a lead buyer, you've got a lot of leads coming in right now. They're hitting your CRM, your lead management system, whatever it is. You try, you've got some rules in place where you're making decisions around how those are assigned, how they're prioritized for your sales team, how they follow up with it, how you decide to follow up with it. What our applications do is they plug into your data. We build predictive models. So we train on just on each customer's data. As those records hit their CRM or their LMS or their dialer or their marketing automation system, simply post the data to us. We give them back predictive values with those leads. So now each lead's got a predictive value that lets that customer know, okay, here's how I want to assign the lead based on the probability of a good outcome. Here's how I want to contact this lead based on the probability of a good outcome. Here's how I want to nurture that lead based on the probability of a good outcome. So we rely on probabilities. We're saying this thing is more likely to happen if you do X versus, hey, that if you're forced to have a fixed rule in place, that can be kind of challenging and limiting. Every single record that comes through, we're giving you the probability of what is more likely to happen if you do X or Y or Z. So our customers it's easy for them to use. And it's like, we talk about putting predictions to work. It's it's predictive AI. So it's really straightforward from a model perspective, but the applications is where we've spent most of our time, making it easy for people to consume that data, put it into your CRM, in your LMS, in your marketing automation, in your dialer, and actually use it to solve this very specific problem.
Which is amazing. And because from the outside looking in, when I work with so many different brands, different verticals, they complicate everything. It's
Yeah.
like, and it's like, guys, like their answer a lot of times to growth is just we need to buy more leads, right? Or we need to just spend more. And it's like, it's easy because they can just call ABC lead provider and try to turn on more leads. We know not all leads are created equal. We've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And sometimes businesses don't take the time to look inward and say we can be much more efficient and get the leads to the right people at the right time and get to the communication method the consumer wants and just be in a better space. And I think brands are waking up to that. Obviously AI is also becoming a big part of that as well. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit today too. But mortgage, you and I we've been through the refi wave in 2030, like you said, after the dot-com crash. We've been through the financial crisis. We've been through what I call like the direct-to-consumer boom after like Quicken and Loan Depot and everybody kind of went crazy after the financial crisis. We're in this crazy era now where obviously rates have gone up over the last couple of years, and direct-to-consumer mortgage has pulled back, at least for refi. How have you guys tried to diversify? I mean, we grew up in the mortgage lead gen space. How have you guys tried to diversify? I know you're still helping your mortgage clients. What verticals are you trying to expand into or help, other businesses and direct to consumer?
Yeah. It was an adjustment. I mean, 2022 and 2023 was certainly an adjustment. We were very heavy in mortgage. But we got into auto lending, which also has had its own issues as well. We're now in insurance. We're just getting into home services, which
Yes.
I love.
Yes.
We're looking at education. But really it comes down to, for us at least, and every industry, as you know, has its own nuances, obviously. But as we enter a new industry, our buyers, our customers lead the way, right? They kind of tell us what they think is important. Once we start looking at data, you quickly see like what features matter. And it's interesting because these industries are very similar in that you're generating a lot of leads, a lot of prospects are coming in. You've got pretty good systems to distribute those to help your salespeople execute. Your salespeople typically are making outbound dials. They're selling a considered transaction, like they're working through with the customer to make a decision that maybe the customer isn't comfortable making, isn't ready to make, whatever it is, they're working through to that decision. And then when that thing closes, when it converts, it's a significant revenue event for the company, right? So that dynamic is consistent across every industry we're in. So the principles are the same. Mortgage is at the high end of what that, it's a $10,000 revenue event in a mortgage origination. In an insurance policy, it's a $1,500 revenue. So you've got, different dynamics from that perspective. But yeah, the unit economics are all very, very, very similar. To your point, if you can do more with what you have, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And we've learned so much from mortgage because it's been through all these up and down roller coasters with lead buyers having to be, more conscious and understanding. It sounds like it's been helpful for you to diversify because you were able to, apply a lot of those learnings to some of the verticals that aren't, as more sophisticated or have gone through some of these lead gen, um, cyclical bursts, ups and downs. So, awesome, man, for diversification. It's key in success. And I also want to applaud you because I've noticed over the last I'd say this year, you've made a concentrated effort in putting more content out there, which I think is so helpful because, you know, I think this year's LeadsCon was extremely helpful. There was so much good content out on the stage. So hard to be in meetings and check out all the content and the exhibit hall, but the amount of presentation content was so valuable. The Every week there seems to be like a webinar, out there today, but a lot of it's more compliance focused. It seems like that's obviously taking the stage because the FCC stuff, but you're putting out some really valuable content. And I love how you organize it. You share the key bullets, the takeaways, but what got you all juiced up to get out there? I mean, you have all this intel, right? Like what got you
Yeah.
juiced up to start sharing and get out there and put yourself out there?
I mean, like we sit on a lot of aggregated data. So we have a lot of aggregated customer data. And the thing that I've learned is like, and this is early in our business, like nobody really wants advice, like nobody's like, hey, you should do X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay. But people do like stories, right? And particularly if you can tell those stories, and you can supplement it with data points, I think those are helpful for people like, frankly, like me. That's the content I gravitate towards is tell me about somebody else that may or may not look like me, but tell me a good story about them, what they did, and if you can support it with some data, even better. So that's what we really try to do is just kind of, show that there's that the individual customers. We do some customer stories. We tend to do more aggregated reports and views and kind of share what we're seeing broadly and what some of the master trends are. That said, like, and I try to reinforce this, but when we're showing these big trends, the beauty of this is every single one of our customers is different. They all behave differently. So even though we show a trend that maybe say, hey, in the mortgage industry, Tuesdays are the most productive, the highest converting lead day from a percentage, the highest converting lead day. Okay. Like, okay, good. That's true. Now, every shop is different. So some shops, yeah, Tuesday's their day, Thursday may be their day. Every shop is different. And the beauty of it is, I think, if you take away these aggregated views here, you're looking at data, you're going, oh, that's like super insightful. Does that mean it's relevant for me? It's like, well, what's relevant for you is that you can find this stuff in your data, but it's not necessarily that Tuesday is the best day. And so it's fun. I mean, I enjoy it because it sparks conversations too. And you like to have stuff like the speed to lead stuff. It's like I know it's like, all right, well, if I'm telling people that speed doesn't matter, like Joey's going to call me up and be like, what are you talking about? Scott
Yeah,
Payne's
dude.
all over me, right? It's like, So I
Well,
like that stuff because it's just fun to talk about. And
yeah, and let's jam on that one too, because we grew up in I'd say the 2000s era, and coming out into the direct to consumer boom, where speed, everybody was preaching speed. Leads 360 at the time, before they were acquired by Velocify, they published a very helpful study about, hey, you got to call the lead in the first 5 minutes, and they shared, I think my old partner Sean Fenlon still has a copy of that, I still have a copy of that, and shares it with everybody still. And then MIT came out with one shortly thereafter, which everybody kind of preached on. But we grew up in this when the leads got distributed, and that was Double Positive's main pitch, right? Was, hey, we're going to call the lead within milliseconds. And I actually, before you did your webinar with Scott Payne and talked about it, I actually started thinking in my head, just, that I haven't seen as much content out there, speed being so critical. And it didn't seem like brands were pushing on it too much, but you actually came out first and said it, which is awesome. And I love listening into your webinar. But what do you think's going on since when we grew up to where we are today, where why isn't it as critical for direct to consumer lead buyers to be successful in, being in that millisecond approach?
yeah, I would say the key dynamic here is like it is important, right? And like, but so many. I mean, this was I forget when that study was done, 20 some years ago. Most shops do follow up quickly, right? And at this point, it's like, hey, you got to call your leads quickly. Is kind of like saying to a salesperson, hey, you have to follow up on your leads. It's like, yeah, no, of course, I get it. So most shops do understand the urgency around. He's got to get. Where's he's got to get out? Most of them do understand the urgency around it, and around getting to those leads quickly. So I would, it's like never like get back in the advice thing. You're never saying, hey, like don't call your leads. I think what we found was interesting was we just see patterns where if you don't contact a lead quickly, if you're not the first, you're still fine. You're still fine. So it's part of your strategy. Now here I am with the shoulds. It's typical. It's a best practice and a proven best practice that you want to follow up quickly, make that initial contact attempt quickly. But if you don't get it, if you don't execute it, it's fine. It's fine, right? It's fine. And I think the dynamic, frankly, has been, and I don't pretend to know much about consumer psychology, but ultimately there are more things about you and your brand that customers care about than the fact that you're
Yes.
the first one to hit them.
Yes.
Now that could be a factor for some people, for sure, right? But there's a lot more about they're going to research you, they're going to check your rates, they're going to look at your BBB rating, they're going to look at online reviews, you check your website, make sure it's legit. They're going to talk to people about you. So just think there's ultimately more factors involved.
Yeah, I agree. And for those that missed the webinar, or even there's a short clip too, Ethan put out recently on his LinkedIn page. I encourage you to check it out. I agree. Like, I think, the consumer experience today is a lot different than when we started dialing on leads. I think you're right. Is we live in a ratings and review world. We live in, you know, people are able to send more instant information about the brand out, whether it's through texting or emailing. And I think you're right. The consumer is also being used to speaking to artificial intelligence a little bit more now through. And so I think there is the sense of, hey, like, I'd rather get a better sense of who I'm really speaking to, especially so numbers aren't getting flagged as spam and so forth. And actually, if I'm genuinely interested in a refinance or auto insurance, or like, I'd actually like to take a pause to go through that journey for a minute here without. Whereas when we grew up, it was like, oh my God, we got to call it right away. And it was like we were going to do we had to be that first connection point to instant gratification of the consumer, and keep the consumer on the line so they can't speak to anybody else, and all that type of stuff, right? So thank you for putting that out there. And again, I encourage anybody, within all these different verticals that are buying leads to take a pause for a minute and go watch that. It's very helpful. You share some good information there. So it's not all just thought. It's more, there's some data behind it too.
Yeah, there's some data, and you can, and the other cool part, like you mentioned, boxing people out, and like Quicken set the tone, and I can't tell you, we talked to so many customers, particularly early in our journey, around, hey, we got to be Quicken, and it's like, man, that's gonna be tough. Like, how about instead of maybe like beating Quicken, like how about like playing a new game, playing a
Yeah.
different game? It's a
Yes.
tough deal now to kind of stay on par. Great, but there was a dogma around, hey, I've got to get this lead within 2 or 3 seconds. There's a dogma around a lot of dials. There's a dogma, there's always there's best practices, and they become dogmas, and you feel the need to meet that. And what we've seen with our customers is that oftentimes your success comes not by executing relative to what everybody else is doing, but figuring out what you're good at and executing on that.
Amen. Amen. Well said. Well said. Um, Dude, I got to touch on it because we've been teasing it on the whole show. But step outside the biz for a sec. So Ethan's a Baltimore boy, just like me. For anybody that follows me, I constantly talk about the Ravens or the Orioles, which we couldn't have talked about the Orioles for a long time. They're finally relevant and doing awesome, and they're gonna be good for a while. They got such good young talent, but Ethan and I, whenever we see each other, whenever we talk, we always get the jam on the Ravens. Throughout this year, we were constantly texting or just talking about, not being in the Baltimore media. We would watch Ravens Wired, which is like, weekly show that just gives so much content around the team and what they're doing to prep for the games. It's like, Hard Knocks, but just dedicated to the Ravens, and
It's like it's like the liner connections of the lead gen world. You get the behind the scenes, baby.
But dude, I go to Baltimore a couple times a year, visit my folks. Do you miss it? Do you miss being back there?
I do. I went back for the AFC Championship. I was lucky enough to go back, and a
Same
bunch of
here.
my
Yeah.
buddies came back, and we just spent a great weekend together. I mean, it was a bummer. The outcome was a
Yes,
bummer,
of
but we
course.
soaked our sorrows with we went down and just had 6 dozen crabs right after the game. Just I drowned our sorrows in Old Bay and sweet meat. So
Love
um,
it. And you've known to fly out crabs
oh yeah, oh
in
yeah.
Northern California too. You've had
Yeah,
them to your
in fact,
parties
just
out there.
last
Yeah.
night I was out on lacrosse, and someone said, they talking about Baltimore, and they're like, oh, what do you like better, Dungeness or blue crab? And of course, as soon as anybody out here says blue crab, as soon as it comes out of their mouth, all they say is they're way too hard. They're so small. Blah blah. You're like, okay, well, I'm not gonna defend the best meat on the face of the planet. Like, I'm just not going to. It's okay. It's a lifestyle.
Oh my
It's a
goodness. That
lifestyle.
lump crab meat is so good, man.
I,
It's
I
so
mean,
freaking good.
it's the process of sitting at a table for 3 hours with your
Yes.
with your paper, and just getting dirty and getting into it and getting your
Yes.
fingers all cut up and drinking your Coors Light and having your garlic bread and your corn. I mean, it's
Ah,
truly, it's just it's like it's a wonderful and very unique Baltimore thing, and we do it out here. I try to do it once a year
yeah.
with I've got 3 other couples, and we had virtually started with like 10 couples, and a bunch of people were like, not for me. So now I'm down to the 3 hardcores. So it's 8 of us every year, and
Love it.
yeah, it's just a magical
So
thing. I might even try to do it in the next few weeks. So
good. Maybe we'll spot a lead gen crab fest, a blue crab fest, and you and I will go out and
that'd
recruit
be
some
awesome.
peeps or
It'd probably just be me, you, Sean Fenlon, and now Jason Goldsmith. That would be about the. That would be about the. It'd be 4 of us.
I will tell you this, and I tell this to every time, I'm out to dinner or whatever, and I see a crab cake on the menu. I'm like, kind of general rule from anybody who's from Baltimore is we typically don't order crab cakes that are outside of Baltimore. You just can't match the lump and less bread and just the success of getting that all together. It's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah, I'm with you.
that's,
There's total skepticism. People are like, oh, why don't you get the lump? Why don't you get the crab cake? You're from Baltimore. You're like, exactly, no to
yeah,
the crab cake.
it ain't gonna match what I'm used to. Um, Dude, I want to touch on AI because you're in a tech stack business, right? Like
Yeah.
and so it's almost like this immense pressure to keep up with, obviously, what everybody continues to buzz about is efficiency and being well, embedding AI into their business. So how have you guys thought about that at ProPair?
Yeah, it's a good. So I thank you for asking because like it's um, as we got this kind of tailwind of AI, and there's a lot of buzz. Differentiating what we do and from the buzz, or not even maybe differentiating, but extracting what we do from a lot of the noise has been something we've tried to focus on. I think the thing that's helped me is, and I forget where I picked this up from, but somebody talked about just two types of AI. There's Gen AI, which is Chat GPT and all these search and all these amazing capabilities, and then there's predictive or traditional AI, and that's more ML typically. And so we do predictive traditional AI, and we're like we're not complicating things. Our customers use our applications to make predictions about what is likely to happen, and then they use those values to automate lead management decisions. That's it. That's what we do. We touch every single record they have. We put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10 predictive values on that lead. We can put a predictive value on it a day later, an hour later, 5 days later, whatever it is. We're going to predict an outcome and we're going to sign that. We're going to attach that to the lead record. Their systems then do the work, right? We're giving a prediction. We're replacing what they were used to using as a fixed rule with now a prediction. So it's like I don't want to make it too simple. Like, oh, it's
Yeah.
At the same time, it's simple. If you're sitting there today as a sales manager and you're getting a couple hundred leads coming into your team, would you like to know how likely each one of those is to convert? And would you like to know how likely each one of your agents is to convert them? That'd be pretty helpful, right? Like if you have that, that's pretty helpful. So there you go. That's what we do.
I mean, that's it. And that's it. Like, it's just, that is key for, like you talked about earlier, just making it easy and simple, but it's true. It's like, if you can be way more efficient to the people, the amount of your spend and your staff, and making sure that you're getting the right leads to the right, and giving the consumer the right experience,
Yeah.
everybody's happy. We're
Yeah.
flowing upstream in the right direction, we're all feeling good. So
Yeah. And the cool thing, like you
or
mentioned that, like feeling
downstream.
good, like our customer, our customers, like we'll hear back. The thing that I first started hearing early was like, oh, you've taken this burden off me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Amen.
well, I didn't even really think about, but okay. Like, I don't need to stress about, am I working are we working on the right leads? Am I giving the right leads to the right people? Are we pursuing the right contact strategy? Are we
Yeah.
nurturing these? Like, no, that you still want to monitor it and make sure you're doing the right, but those things get automated. Our customers can automate those with our
Good.
values.
Good. Yeah, as we close out, I want to talk about shows, but before that, like, so is is it easy to test with you? Because I think in the services based world we live in, some brands just perceive in their own mind like this is going to be a challenge, right? Like, I don't want to switch CRMs, or I don't want to switch dialers, or it's just I don't have the time, right? We just got to keep buying more leads, right? But like, is there a simple way, just a proof of concept to give ProPair a shot?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's a nice, yes. So we have it's
And
actually
Ethan's not paying me. Don't
no,
worry.
that's
I'm just,
great. I love it.
but
In fact,
but the
if I could,
conversation bears it,
yeah,
like, because you keep talking about all the ways to make it better for your
yeah.
clients, but like, I want people to understand, like, how does somebody on board with you?
Yeah, it's so we do a thing called the ProPair Challenge, and it's a very straightforward process. The first thing we start with whenever we talk to a new prospect is like, let's just make sure that the use cases are there, right? Let's
Yeah.
make sure that you have problems that are meaningful enough to solve, and that our applications, frankly, can help you solve them. If they can't, great, no problem. If they can, great. We'll talk about those. Make sure they're meaningful enough. Make sure you're prioritizing them. If we get to that point where it's like, okay, good, this looks like a reasonable thing, Ethan, show me that it's going to work. We do the ProPair Challenge, and in that case, we take 3 to 6 months of historical data. We collect that from the prospect. We run it through our applications, And then we share it back with them and say, hey, this is what your data looks like in our applications. This is
That's
the output
awesome.
you get. How would you use this if we said, hey, we're going to, maybe the use case was lead assignment, we're going to get it to the right agent. Great. Here's what that distribution looks like into your agents. Here would be your expected conversion rate lift. We're to talk some numbers. We ran our Q4 through Q1 study just recently, and we see across, this is aggregated across all of our customers, so everybody's a little bit different. But they were talking about having really good performance over the last 4, 5, 6 months. That study revealed that 16%, we're pulling through 16% more customers through our recommendations than through the control group that we implement, or basically the control group represents what they would do with their fixed rules. That's material, right? That's material.
Huge, dude. Huge.
And it's
Not
simply
1%, 2%, 3%, 16.
it's material, and you're doing it just by adding values to. Now we do the work, we do all the model training and all the updating and all the application configuration, but you're simply adding a value or a string to your leads and then configuring within your system, and away you go. And that's right there. That's like right there sitting for you. So anyway, we do the challenge. We do it free of charge because we want to get people over the hurdle of like, okay, well, this all sounds great, but so you're like, okay, well, here's what it looks like. Here's what the data will look like. So
and you put your money where your mouth is. Like you're actually sharing with them the use case if it makes sense. If it came back flat, or if it came back, where it didn't make sense, and they're doing such a good job with their great, but it's like when an agency, a search agency is looking at, taking over an account, they have to do like a Google health check, right, on keywords, and they're going to say, hey, this is what we would do if we were to buy, if we were to take over as your search agency. You guys are doing it at the level, within the workflow and lead acquisition. I think that's awesome. I would, again, if anybody's listening today who's considering even giving it a shot, contact Ethan just for the free ProPair challenge, just to see, right? And I can promise you, I've known Ethan forever. He's a straight shooter. Nobody wants time wasted. So after you go through the challenge, you guys will, I'm sure, have a good conversation and determine if it's worth it to work together. So thank you for sharing that, brother. Yeah. So we're coming back from, it's about a month plus from LeadsCon. I thought, I've been to every LeadsCon. I know you've been probably almost them all too. I thought that was like really a special show. Like it was good content, great meetings, and then also just like, so the exhibit hall was vibrant, a lot of good activity. I think shows are becoming, I know there's so many of them. There's like a show every week, but like I try to choose 4 or 5 a year that I want to go to because I want to go with a purpose. I want to come back feeling good. What are your thoughts too? Like, did you have a great LeadsCon, and where are you going to be the rest of this year?
Yeah, I mean, I share your sentiment. There was something in the air. I think, I think a lot of it, honestly, like this sounds weird. I thought Ian did a great job with the content.
Yes.
And I actually I listened to a couple of sessions. They were excellent. I thought I did a session with 3 experts, and I was just moderating. So I just got to hand out the questions, and they were amazing. And they were, I don't think I'm jaded, like it was really good. It was really valuable what they were saying, and it was relevant and topical. And then I went into the exhibit hall, and like you said, like the exhibit hall was booming.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for those 2-3 story things, man. I think there's a lot of value in, I know Rich from Endura had one, and like, there's a lot of,
Boso, yeah.
There's just, it's just like it gives it a greater energy, and it's contagious. I mean, now you're I'm running into you, and you're like, isn't this show great? And I'm like, yeah, it is great, right? And I'm going to the next person, talking to, Fenelon. It's like, hey, this is great, right? He's like, yeah, it is great, right? So it just, you see a Rue, you're like, this is great. She's like, oh, it's awesome, right? So it just kind of spreads, and I think we needed it too. I think it's been a few rough years of whatever weirdness, and it was good. So I'll be at the next one. I try to go to free shows. I really like Contact.io. We'll be doing a panel. I'm putting together a panel now with a few lead buyers that folks will know well. That'll be a very good panel. Again, I'll moderate, so I just get to ask questions. We'll be talking about contact, assignment, and just lead management practices. And really, like, you'll get in that panel, it'll be good because it'll be those folks, and we'll press them to talk specifics about what they've seen be successful, what they haven't been, what they see not work. And then I'll be at go to ITC Vegas in October for insurance, because that's a industry that we cover. And then I'll finish out probably last one of the year will be in October, the MBA conference in Denver. And we try to cover. I'm trying to do more. I might even go to a home services conference.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to do more in the industries that we cover. Those are effective.
Yeah, home services was definitely a huge buzz at the show, right? I mean, we've heard home services over the years. Solar's had its boom, but I think the reality is, people, and right before your episode, I recorded with Ruben from Active Prospect, who many folks
Mr. Home Services,
crowned the king, exactly, king of home services and performance marketing. So if you can, he actually mentioned some shows to go to, and his thoughts about. But I mean, obviously, roofing, flooring, windows. It's people are reality are staying in their homes, right? Because they can't find inventory or rates, what. So we all want to expand in home services. It's great to be able to do that, home ownership, and now you guys can piggyback off that for helping these big bounty decisions around the home. So I love it. And I'm going to see if there's any home services that make sense too, but I'll be at contact as well. And I'll sit in on session because I'm encouraging it. I've said this on my feed too. Anybody that's planning to go to any show, really take like 10, 15 minutes to review the agenda. Like, there was a point where people were just going to shows and ignoring the content. And I think the tide is turning now, where actually I went out of my way to sit through about 3 sessions. I could, right? And I was impressed. Like, I was really juiced about it. Ian, shout out, man. Like, you're getting the right people at the right time, right place.
Yeah.
But I got to moderate too, and I loved it. And so,
yeah, I agree. I think it's a lot of it's the effort put in, like you know how it is with content. Like, you could mail it in.
Yeah,
you can just show up and just be like, whatever, okay. Or you can do 3 or 4 prep calls. You can, everyone can have a homework. You can meet together an hour before, like, you can really deliver. You have good people. If like, my panel was I had just like 3 stars, right? So it's like, okay, I'm gonna make these stars show 4. I'm gonna make them shine, right? It's like easy to make them shine. They're just really, really good, right? But like, that does take it took me a little while to figure out what is it that makes them good. Like, what is their unique value to this conversation? Once you figure that out and you get them on a path, it's like, man, it's awesome, right? So I think the content, the work that panelists and presenters put in it pays off for sure.
It does. It does. Ethan Ewing, you are an amazing human. I loved our conversation today, brother. Like I said, I encourage anybody who's listening to reach out to Ethan on LinkedIn. He's got great content that he's putting out, which, again, we just talked about how valuable that is, but it's meaningful and impactful. And again, if you have heard of ProPair, or have just you've been scared to look at considering or giving it a shot, take the challenge, give Ethan a shout. I can vouch, like I said, he's an amazing human. Hopefully that shined out here today as well. But brother, great to see you, man. Good luck in your lacrosse games.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate it.
Yeah. I will put that 181 in there today too. So raise the count, and I wish you the best of luck, dude. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. You're, like I said at the top, you're a special human. So I appreciate it. And thanks for giving me the opportunity. And yeah, man, go Liner. I love these one-liners. These are awesome. These are awesome.
Thanks,
I've been watching them, so keep them coming.
Thanks, brother. Really, really, really appreciate it. See you soon.
See you, man. Bye.